Hello, hello. My name is Nicholas Lamar Soutter, and welcome everyone to In Time. Today with me is Vox and the Reverend Dr. Chris Moody. So, oh dear Lord. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Moody.
All those things are true. All those things are true.
Oh dear Lord. All right. So, this is In Time. Thank you for joining us. We are on time. It's it's a new Trump is going to be out of the White House. I think I decided we would turn over a new leaf by doing one show on time. So here we are. So thank you all for joining us. Today's topic is Rorschach, but it was the I think the Reverend Dr. Him has done a much better job, I think, explaining this than I have. So I will let him take it away and tell us about today's topic.
All right. So hopefully we'll cover three main things. The first is I'm just going to explain what a Rorschach is. And then I'll apply it to something it's not meant to be applied to, right? It's meant to be a test, an ink blot test, and we'll go over a bunch of those. I would like to posit that it could be analogous to human beings. It could be applied to humans being Rorschachs. And I like to give some examples, some extreme as well as everyday examples. And then we'll wrap it up with the dangers. I can think of two main dangers in applying this approach of humans as Rorschachs, which is going to be another way that I'm going to keep saying it over and over again, is that humans are sloppy, humans are messy. So that's going to kind of play into tonight's chat. How do you feel about
that? Sounds perfect. Fox, what do you think?
I'm ready to get experimented on.
So many places to go with that, but here's where we're going to take it. All right, so you brought examples of Rorschachs.
I did, yes.
All right, so before you display, let me just say that. So, in the branch of clinical psychology, where you are going in an attempt to have to work with somebody on some problems that you're having, from some mental problems, whatever language you want to use. The language that I use is, in an attempt to remove obstacles to goals that you have. That's what therapy's for. Well, an old analytic approach, psychoanalytic approach, and psychoanalysis means specifically that I'm talking about a psychodynamic theory. I'm going to turn myself up just a touch here. Proposed by Freud. So Freud is psychoanalysis. What he wanted to do was get to your unconscious, and because that's where all the good stuff was, without getting too deep into Freudian analysis. And one of the ways that he would do that is analysis of ambiguous things. One of his favorite topics was dreams. Another way that he developed or utilized was free association. For those of you unfamiliar with free association, you are just given carte blanche to just say the first things that come into your head, right? And you do that for a bunch, and then eventually you will ease into a groove. And from a therapeutic perspective, or at least a Freudian psychoanalytic therapeutic perspective, you will start tapping into unconscious content that the therapist can then kind of cherry pick, like, oh, you said this, what did you mean by that? So all of this is meant to unearth unconscious things that is grist for the mill for the therapy session itself. Projective tests is what they are called, right? When you are doing dream analysis or dream interpretation, you're projecting meaning onto something ambiguous. And these Rorschach tests were just that. They were literally pieces of paper with an ink blot, a touch of ink placed in the middle of it. Ooh. Bouncy noises. And then you fold the paper in half and unfold it, and you have this smeary, ambiguous figure. So, Nick, you have some examples of this.
I do.
Smeary.
So the tests, these are PAP tests, right? Is that what?
Perception, yes.
Shoot, I've forgotten what that stands for. Never mind.
Yeah, I don't know
All right.
What PAP?
Look it up right now. Yeah. Look that up. It's the Rorschach is a PAP. You use the word, and I'm sorry.
I don't think
It
PAP
is.
is the word you're looking for, brother.
Yeah. Okay. Now I'm gonna.
But it is a projection test, regardless. We'll figure that word out in a hot moment.
Yeah. We'll figure it out.
And go ahead.
No. Sorry, you were saying.
I was going to say, you have examples, so let's get to those.
All right. There's the first one.
Here's a classic example. So a lot of these are going to look like butterflies. So butterfly is always always an appropriate answer. And there's no such thing as really an inappropriate answer. The goal of a Rorschach is to have somebody project meaning onto it, because if you have 20, 30 different people, you might get 40, 50 different interpretations of the same ink blot, right? So, and each interpretation is going to be what that person brings to the experience from their own experience or whatever mood they're in, right? If you're not in a great mood and you're and at your fingertip are all the fucking shitty things going on around you, you might see something a little different in a Rorschach test than somebody who's in a great mood and is in such a great mood they can see nothing but blue skies, you know what I mean, around them, and polka dots and moonbeams. So it is a way to kind of generate this unconscious content. So this is the one that I mentioned. I think this is the same one that's in the lower left hand of the one that's coming up. This to me looks like Oprah Winfrey and Phil Donahue getting in a fist fight over daytime ratings in 1983.
Okay, that is weirdly specific.
Somebody says it looks like a moth to them. None of these are inappropriate answers, right?
Looks like Pennywise.
It actually, to me, it looks like two angels, like they've each got a hand and the wings and yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah,
It's like cloud interpretation is all we're doing, really.
Yeah. I don't know. I looked at it and I saw Pennywise the clown.
Oh, Pennywise the clown.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just actually out of curiosity, is it true that as I recall, was it on their way back from, I think it was even Worcester, Massachusetts, Freud and Jung were engaging in dream analysis, and Freud interpreted one of Jung's dreams as a genuine desire to murder Freud, and then that was what caused the rift between them.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh,
I wouldn't put it past Freud. Freud was petty and whacked out of his brain on cocaine and pretty much a cult leader. So
was Jung the one that was beating Keira Knightley in that movie? I don't remember.
What?
Yeah, that's all
there
was
the movie about Sigmund Freud and his partner, and Keira Knightley plays the crazy lady, and they get into some sadomasochism in the movie.
Does she play Anna O, like one of their first clients?
I don't remember the name. All I remember is that the partner of Freud ends up
that's Brunner.
Yeah,
his original partner was Joseph Brunner, but Jung was one of his students after Freud became quite popular. And they did have a rift. I just don't know if that story that you just told is the real reason for it. But they had their differences. Even if Freud didn't interpret Jung's dream as him wanting to kill him, Jung took the unconscious concept and was just like, individual conscious my ass, unconscious my ass is a collective unconscious. Holy shit! Because of him, we have Joseph Campbell and what's that shitty movie about all the history of religions?
The
documentary on YouTube. It's not a movie. It's not Loose Change. It's like Loose Change, except it's about the history of religions and stuff, and draws all the connections between Moses and Jesus and Hercules. Somebody in the side chat.
It sounds familiar. Yeah, I like this one. Looks like Batman getting squished, or the Atheist Republic's logo. It does look like the Atheist Republic's logo.
So the goal isn't necessarily what it is that you see. It's like, oh, well, because you see angels, it means this. It's more like, okay, well, why? What is it about it that what are the angels doing? And then that kind of, like I said, it becomes grist for the mill for like, analyzing deeper unconscious thoughts. Move on to another one. Let's do another couple more of these. And then I want to jump the analogy towards human beings as being these ink blots. Now, hold on to AOC for a hot second.
Yeah.
I like these because they're colorful and wacky. So yeah, the one that we just saw is the one on the bottom left. To me, the one on the bottom right looks like two people playing drums, two people playing on the same drum with just ornaments around them.
I didn't see that, and then you said it, and now I see it.
How cool is that, right?
Mm-hmm.
People can be primed, and perceptions can be.
I was thinking
shaped.
more of those cavemen drawings, or like on the walls where they maybe like two animals, like two gazelles or something like that, being hunted.
Oh, I see. Oh, I kind of see that.
Yeah.
What about you, Nick? What are you saying?
No, now that you said the drums, I can't really see anything other than that. But on the one on the upper left, that one almost looks like Bigfoot like bearing down on you. Like, you see the 2 feet on the side. It looks like he's got these arms, and his head is just kind of looking down and going, Rah.
Oh, I like that one. It reminds me of a Roald Dahl, where the wild things.
Yeah. He's got a tail. It's a tail, and he's got the like kind of feet like this,
except
and he's
absolutely.
the head is like a baby penguin.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so it's not as intimidating to you as it is to me, but okay.
The top colorful one looks like a deer's head. Right, so I saw two things. The first thing I saw was a deer's head, and then for some reason I'm thinking Nemo. Right, no, it doesn't look anything like Nemo, but I'm thinking Nemo for some reason. Yeah.
I don't even know what to do with the upper right one. To me, it almost looks like Chinese New Year, like dragons and festivity and gala parades in the street, and those crazy dragons with the big heads with many people caterpillar like manning them. And nothing about it looks exactly like that, but it gives me that vibe.
I think I've got you all beat, actually. I think it looks a lot like the fox from I think it was Firefox, or if it was a video game. Also, Sonic the Hedgehog.
What does the fox say?
No, you're talking about Galaga.
No. I'm thinking. Sorry, there's a Sega game. There's a Sega game, and there was a fox, and he had ears just like that. He had like a rocket launcher or a thing. And somebody may remember this one too, but it actually does look like, and I want to say, I think it was like called Star Fox or Star something or other. It's a Sega game.
All I see is the band Doritos, the band. There's only
dear.
a couple people on the side channel.
Yeah. I know that. Yeah.
Right.
He's a troll. I don't like mentioning him because he's a troll.
All right. So
I guess one more.
Read more into these as time goes by. You stare at them a little bit longer. Maybe you start to see different things, because like one of those things started to look like a vagina, like with the fallopian tubes attached to it.
Well, of course you could use different. You get information on a first impression than you do after lingering on something for a while. So I think that all that information would probably be generated depending on how the test would be used. Now, this looks like mirror images of like llamas opposing each other.
Or it looks like two gazelles like jumping out of a what?
What the fucking gazelles? It's the second time you said that.
It's a fucking gazelle. What are you trying to like get at my subconscious now? Are you like you want to go at it with my subconscious?
It's the second time you said it. I'm just noticing patterns.
Gazelle. So it looks like a deer's skull, right? If you look at the whole thing, right, not as two independent images, but
that's really good.
Yeah, looks like a deer skull.
Yeah, so somebody in the side chat nailed it. It was Star Fox was the fox from Star Fox because he's got roughly the same colors and it was, Sorry, the previous one.
I'm also seeing the dogs. Like if I look at it like independently for a second, like I'm seeing the dogs from the first Ghostbusters movie when they come to life.
Oh yeah. It actually also kind of looks like I mean the other one that I'm thinking is like a woman
gazelles.
like a really
gazelles.
Female gazelles.
That's not even that
funny. You are easily entertained, I can tell.
Stupid funny. Stupid.
I was thinking a woman with a broad, like a dress with broad shoulders and almost like Maleficent, the head gear, the Maleficent.
Oh, okay.
You know that from the Disney where she's got the whole.
Now I'm seeing it like almost like now I'm seeing it from behind with her shoulders shrugged.
It's from behind. It's like she's turned away and
Okay, yeah. Took me a really long time to see it, but yeah, now I see it.
It looks suspiciously like a blot of ink.
That's very.
You know what? It's boobs, man. They've all just boobs.
Yeah, okay.
Boobs. Just boobs.
All right. So in the same way that we were able to see different things in the very same stimulus, I'm going to propose that human beings could fill in the blank of that stimulus. In that, we can start with some extreme examples. I'm sure that we know people that are 50-50, right? You have some friends that like them and some friends that don't. And when you ask them why, sometimes they'll give you the same reasons. It's just that some people are willing to take what that person says in good faith and think it's a good joke and think that they're funny and charming. And other people hear the same exact thing, do not like a lick of it, don't like the attitude, and just see the worst in it, just bring the most bad faith version of an interpretation that they can. Why is that? Well, a zillion reasons that we can't get into, but let's focus on the stimulus. Let's focus on the idea that humans themselves are Rorschachs. And we can start with some extreme examples just to kind of facilitate wrapping our heads around this. And so I asked Nick to look up this AOC tweet because my friend Keith and I were having a conversation about this earlier, and I thought it represented ideally what this concept is. All right, so
it's Alexandria Ocasio. Is that right? Cortez.
Yeah.
Is anyone archiving these Trump sycophants for when they try to downplay or deny their complicity in the future? I foresee decent probability of many deleted tweets, writings, photos in the future. LOL at the party of personal responsibility, being upset at the idea of being responsible for their behavior over the last 4 years.
Sick burn. You
Okay.
go, AOC.
So my friend Freud saw his mom naked in that last image. Somebody just posted. That's perfect.
Oh wow.
I could talk Freud slams all night if you want, but I'm just afraid they're going to go over everyone's head. Let me rephrase it. They're not going to go over everyone's head. It's just it'll be too inside baseball. So my buddy Keith, he's like, "Hey man, did you see that AOC tweet, man? McCarthyism." I'm like, "No, really?"
He saw this as a sort of a McCarthyistic or witch hunt kind of. We're going to go after all the Trump sycophants.
That is how he presented it at first. But because he's my best friend, I'm purposely framing it that way because this is a redemption story, right?
He's still friends of yours, so he wasn't redeemed that
we
much.
are still best friends, even after you fucking brought me this shit. Now, truth be told, I am no apologist for AOC. I don't think that I'm no fanboy of AOC. I barely understand her policy. I just know that she's media friendly. That's kind of all I know. A Green New Deal. I think that those words belong to her. That's kind of all I know. All right. Did you see this McCarthyism tweet? I'm like, holy shit, seriously, McCarthyism? She's looking to round up people? Like, fuck. And he keeps talking about it and talking about it. And then I realized, yeah, I did see that tweet, and it's this tweet. I read it over, but I don't have it memorized, right? And I was like, oh, okay. So I let him keep going. Then afterwards, I looked it up. And I was like, it looks like she wants to hold people accountable in the future for the current complicity that they're engaging in today in authoritarian, tyrannical behavior that is actually a poison to America. That doesn't sound like McCarthyism to me, right? McCarthyism sounds like vague connections with vague ideas of demagoguery that was the ultimate villain in a battle of good versus evil, right? To me, that's what McCarthyism was, and this doesn't represent that shit at all. You might be able to include some of the dramatic language, right? But I just don't see it as the same. There's nothing imaginary about this. There's nothing vague about this. There are motherfuckers in Congress right now that are glad handling a president that is doing harm. They are complicit in this. In the future, if they try to distance themselves, what the fuck is wrong? On top of the fact that all she's doing is reiterating what's already known as, keeping receipts. There's already a culture of keeping receipts. That people get their diaper wet hearing somebody just mention the obvious, people are going to keep receipts, is just some weird cohort difference. They're just too old to understand that, like, no, she's not calling for people to do something any different than what they're already fucking doing. Anyway, so that was my take of it.
So
now, why don't you tell us how you really feel about
it? Before I finish the redemption story arc, I would like to present this as the Rorschach test for the next couple of minutes. What do you guys see? I mean, I've already primed you. I've already dirtied the well by telling you what I think about it, but I want your take on it.
Well, so yeah, I look at it and I think I see a couple things, right? I see this idea of holding people accountable for their actions. I see the kind of throwing, reverse sloganeering, right? So in the bottom, she says, "Lol at the party of personal responsibility." Of course, she's talking about Republicans and their idea of, we should be responsible for ourselves, kind of. So a bit of reverse sloganeering there. Yeah.
Pick yourself up by your bootstraps.
Yeah. And of course, there's making predictions here. Like, she's foreseeing a probability of people trying to reinvent their image by deleting tweets and things like that. And she's just like, hey, is anybody now? Of course, I think that's me being charitable. So that's me.
Yeah, I think I kind of want to spitball this a bit. I do think it is somewhat inflammatory in once, and I think it's it's obviously meant to be. Politicians are trying to play it to their base. I don't think she means to be inflammatory as in controversial. I think she means to sort of energize people who dislike Trump. I mean, first of all, using the term sycophant, which is of course a pejorative. And I think that primes people to see this in a bit more of a negative light. I think it's an interesting. I do like the point, and I think it's an interesting point that I do foresee in the future people saying, well, we all got kind of caught up in Trump and we knew what he was doing was wrong, but in sort of a post hoc rationalization and I think she's sort of guarding or arguing against that. I'm not sure what the point would be because, the future's not here yet, so we'll see what people do or say. But right now, this almost feels like gloating, more than anything. So I don't necessarily.
That's a good take.
Yeah. So that's look at the party of I think it's preemptive gloating is what I see it as. I don't think it's a threat, but I can certainly see why people, if I were a Republican, I would probably see it as a threat. I would view it as a veiled threat.
Well, it is. It does have some. I mean, it has a threatening tone to it, right? I don't think there's any denying that it's got a threatening tone to it. But for me, right, as someone who is a fangirl of AOC, threaten all you want, baby girl. Get it. I think she has a unique way of just cutting through all of the bullshit and getting straight to the point. And that's one of the things that I really like about her.
Okay. So now we're kind of getting to where I was getting with my friend on this. Now, again, if this was part of a larger context, I might just completely be naive about what that larger context is. I can only deal with this almost in a vacuum, as just not a vacuum, but like in the greater political realm of just like, she thinks that Trump sucked. People helped this person she thinks sucked. And I agree with her. So this is where confirmation bias gets in. I think that Trump was bad to the point of malignant for the nation. And anybody who helped him or was complicit in his malignancy, history should remember these people, right? I think I agree. So it's confirmation bias. So I can only read it within that context. Now, my buddy, when we talked again earlier today, Keith, I'm going to call him Keith because that's his name. I said to Keith, hey man, you ready to talk about this some more? Because he and I we talk almost every day, and we just begin the conversations exactly where we left them off the day before. Very few niceties. Ready to talk about it? Yeah. I've changed my mind. He goes, okay, what's up with that? He goes, I think that other people had written that it was McCarthyism. I don't think that was my idea. I'm like, oh, okay.
I'm like, okay, yeah.
All right, because well, that it stuck means something, maybe. And I'm like, okay, well, I want explain to me why you don't like it, right? And he started giving me all these explanations about why he doesn't like AOC and what she represents and this, that, and the other. And when he got done, I said, I have to be honest, all of your explanations just seem like the same kind of grievances, petty grievances that anybody would have with any congressman they disagree with. And the answer to that is they're just one of a sea of other people in Congress that is meant to balance the scales, right? So it's the balancing, it's the checks and balances. So even if you think that they are radical as fuck, well, so what? I mean, that radical as fuck, the radicalness is going to be tempered by the less radical and the people who totally disagree. The more radical on the opposite way. So I was just like, okay, so because the instrumentality of her being a radical leftist is kind of taken away, like, what is it about her that you don't like? And then we kind of got into it. And he was just like, man, she's all over the media. She says things that are like pulling the left a little too far left and off the center. And he's just opened up to me about like what AOC represents to him. And when he read this, all of the things that AOC represents to him, that's what this was filtered through. And it was fun. So in psychology, I'm just going to nerd out for one moment. Please let me, and then I'm going to throw it to the two of you for discussion. In psychology, there's this differentiation between ideation and instrumental thinking. Instrumental thinking is, I don't like it for this reason. Should this reason change, I will probably like it, right? Or I won't use something, or I use something for this reason. If it changes, if it stops bringing me that function, I'll use something else. Or I don't, that kind of logic. It's utility, it's pragmatic. And then ideational is, I don't like it because ick, right? And there's just no other way to describe it. It's just this feeling. And when people say certain statements and you kind of unpeel that onion and take away all the pragmatic points, and they still wouldn't change their mind, they kind of have to admit that it's based on an ideational foundation. So that having been said, ideational versus instrumental, my buddy Keith revealed himself to have an ideational preconceived notion about what AOC represented. And the last point I'm going to bring is, because he and I are both musicians, what it comes down to is she's like the Britney Spears of politics. And as musicians, pop music is horrible, and pop pop artists.
You don't even a pop artist, okay.
Pop artists like Britney Spears is like the worst thing ever, because you know that you're going to have to play those fucking songs in a wedding band someday, right? So we have a distaste for like pop music, pop artists, and AOC is like the Britney Spears. She's like the Cardi B of politics. Maybe Cardi B's more raunchy an example than I want to give. I'll stick with Britney Spears. Yeah.
If I can ask a personal question, how much are you charging him an hour?
The hell out of here with that,
for these conversations.
But dude, you should hear the conversations he and I have. This is the tip of the iceberg. You should hear the fucking.
Well, you're sitting there going like, you're like, well, okay, let's get to the root of this. Why are you thinking? And maybe there are these reasons why this sounds like a therapy session.
Keith and I have a friendship where our goal is to sharpen each other's skills of detecting bullshit. So in this instance, his bullshit detector wasn't sensitive enough, and so that's what I'm riding him on. Plenty of other occasions, the tables are flipped. plenty ones that we won't talk about, but exist nonetheless.
I'm gonna need to have a conversation. I need blackmail materials.
I'll bring Keith onto this show. The two of you can fucking hobnob.
So let's talk Marty for a second.
Out of here. So with all of that said, what value do you see? Because there are detractors. Obviously, my friend heard other people label this as McCarthyism, and it resonated with him that it stuck, right? Mm-hmm. And as soon as he told me that and I read it, I'm like, I don't see any of that shit in here. Right? Yep. So people are seeing this based on what they're bringing to it.
So I think, obviously I am a person who is very left of center. So, when I initially see things like that, I'm just like, hell yeah, hold people accountable for their actions. They've been doing some crappy things. They need to, be held accountable for the crappy things that they did now and in the future. Of course, then I experience some cognitive dissonance because I'm like, but wait a second. One of my core beliefs is that people can change and become better people, and that we shouldn't hold them accountable for things that they've done in the past if they've shown that they should be better. And that's a lefty idea.
You've already said the qualifying component, right? The qualifier is, should they have changed their behavior? Should they provide that environment of forgiveness? But they need to take advantage of it. They need to, in their words and actions, demonstrate that they knew they did something wrong and give the proper apology, explain why it was wrong, vow not to do it in the future, stuff like that, especially as a public figure. But yeah, of course not. It's not meant to hold over their head in the case that they, ask for forgiveness. It's just to point to, should they maintain the same, or should they not apologize and then move forward as if nothing happened, like trying to play hide the ball, like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about.
So then the other thing that comes to mind is that we have, if we just, kind of go to the base, which I think we are see the psychology and the base of which, just to turn it over to the philosophical realm for a minute, is it in the analysis of this, we're going to have two terms that are very similar to your instrumental and ideation. We're going to have intentional and dispositional, right? And so we talk about a dispositional state, which is that kind of ick, right? It's just something that is going to be reactive, not something that you can really control. And the best way I can think of describing a dispositional state is going to be, I don't know if any of you guys have ever been around rotten chicken before, right? But if you see rotten chicken or rotten meat, you get this instant kind of thing to it, right? And so that's, I think, going to be very similar to your ideation and psychology. And the reason that I bring that up is because when I have conversations with people about, say, if I'm talking to a theist, right, and I'm trying to walk them through some kind of argument against, I don't know, Thomas Aquinas or something like that. What I'm going to strive to do in order to make sure that the conversation goes smoothly is I'm going to try to make sure to be aware at all times of my biases, such that when I'm talking to them, I am always asking, is this an accurate representation of your beliefs? I don't want to I want to steel man your positions, right? And I do that because in order to have any kind of conversation with somebody about something serious like this, you have to be aware that your biases are going to influence your rose-colored glasses in the way that you're viewing what they're saying. And if you just
you're preaching to the choir here with cognitive biases and heuristics and humans being predictably irrational, and Tversky and Kahneman, all that, Dan Ariely, all that.
Yeah, and what I've noticed is it's something conscious though, right? I have to make myself do it because I have noticed many times when I just start a conversation with somebody, right, and I'm not being conscious of those things, that I tend to just like hear things very differently. Like where if I'm conscious of my biases, I hear somebody say something like, there must be a first mover. I don't instantly think, Jesus, you're stupid, right? But if I'm not paying attention to my biases and I hear somebody say, oh, well, there's motion, so there must be a first mover, I'm just instantly blurting out, Jesus, you're an idiot, and it's because of the things that I have built up in my head, my personal views, my personal experiences.
Indeed. Oh, I like it. Well, so real quick, because I have a couple, I'll throw it to you in just a second. So okay, even Dan,
yeah.
So Dan Kahneman, the guy who has the Nobel laureate in economics, he's a psychologist who got the Nobel award in economics by pointing out that we are not rational people; we're predictably irrational. To this day, when he's asked whether he can prevent his biases, he says he's no better at it than anybody else. The only thing he's good at is noticing which environments he is most prone to give into his biases, and he tries to not be in those environments. So, because it is so difficult, because we're doing it so rapidly and through so many different interactions, trying to catch all of them is more difficult than just recognizing what environments you don't want to be a victim of your biases in, right? And then avoid those contexts. Nick, you said you had a question?
Well, yeah. So along those lines, it sounds like what we're talking about is and I think Vox had said earlier, sort of trying to be objective about what you're viewing. But in order to do that, you're going to have to render some form of judgment in regards to what your biases are, and then try to account for that. But in so doing, I'm sorry, what?
Who does that?
Well, I think the example Vox was giving, she was saying that that's what she tries to do when she's saying, okay, I'm going to try to look at this more objectively. But in order to do that,
and by the way, I believe that, but that makes you, and I agree, I try to do that as well. Those of us that know that it exists to the point where we try to work on it puts us in the 1 percentile. There's 5% of us in the world that, you know what I mean? This is such an academic weird concept. Anyway, that was the point that I was making. I wasn't doubting the fact that there are people that do it. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. So but that leads to the problem is that, and this is the same problem with the rose-colored glasses, really, which is, okay, but in your attempt to do that, you're going to have to figure out what your own biases are, and you're going to be applying your biases to the attempt to figure out what your biases are, and your biases in the attempt to figure out what the objective, unbiased position must be. And then when you sort of recognize that, you're going to say, okay, well, how do I account for it? It's turtles all the way down. Mm-hmm. So the question is there any, it actually just sort of reminds me of Hume's problem of induction, but at any rate, is there an answer to that? How do you deal with the fact that you're still going to have to make a judgment call at some point? At what point do you say that you've done enough work on it? Is it even possible, really? How do you deal with the fact that it seems to be an infinite regress, because you're still going to be the same? You're still going to be seeing even those rose-colored glasses through the rose-colored glasses of your own biases anyway.
Yeah, so you're going to be biased and looking for your biases as you're looking for your biases.
Exactly.
All the way.
I mean, for me, it's fairly easy. You know, my bias is I just assume that I'm always right.
I knew this was a setup. I smelled that shit coming.
There's a reason. There's a reason we have Vox on.
That was good. Perfectly timed. That was perfectly timed. I don't know if I necessarily have an answer for that, other than to say, like, acceptance, right? You accept that you have mental shortcuts that are called heuristics, and you have biases, and that in general, even though we're predictably irrational, we're also predictably rational, right? You know, we know how to count the change when we pay for something. Should you use cash anymore? Does anyone use cash anymore? You know, in general, we go when the light is green and we stop when the light is red. You know what I mean? In general, we're predictably rational as well. We're just predictably irrational in very specific, complex points. So don't let it drive yourself mental.
This is where I think, you know, and some people will have heard this term, and some people will not have heard these terms.
Is that the Oracle on the couch?
No, she's correcting my English over here.
Oh yeah.
Don't let me.
Sorry, Vox.
What did I say?
Oh, it's okay.
Keep going. Sorry, I just said something horribly.
There is the steel man, straw man.
Yes.
All right. So generally speaking, when we're talking about arguments, especially in, like, say, if we're trying to understand somebody's position on something, right, we can either steel man their position, which would be to allow our biases to just freely flow. Right. They said that they, you know, dislike Granny Smith apples, and so you say, well, they just hate all apples. Right, would be an example of a straw man. And so I think obviously the opposite of that is the steel man. Right, and the steel man is to say, this is what I think you said. Is this accurate? Am I accurately portraying your position? So I would say, I think what you said is you dislike red apples. And they could come back and say, well, actually what I said is I dislike a particular kind of red apple, Granny Smith, right? And so that, I think, is our primary weapon against our own internal biases, is just that reference check, because that's what it is. It's a reference check.
Or deliberately trying to take the best possible interpretation of what's being said and trying
principle of charitability.
The principle of charitability. Yeah. That's exactly right. So, I mean, I would just take a step back and say, agree with you, but in agreeing with you, say, like, yes, and the principle of charitability is one of the tools in your toolbox for this craft of open communication that you're practicing, right? And it's an aspirational thing, not a destinational thing. You always want to be better at it. But yeah, so long as you maintain that goal in your interactions, you're going to be prone to biases, but there are firewalls, like, you know, empathic listening, appropriate pointed questioning, and, you know, and stuff like that, and being mindful, you know, knowing that you're prone to biases and stuff, and also admitting when you're full, when you're done with the conversation, because just being the tiny bit cranky can just ruin everything. So, you know, simple things like that. But, you know, it's not any one of them that is the secret. It's just a dedication to having an honest conversation.
I think we would all singularly be fascinated if we spent more time just asking people what they think, as opposed to ascertaining why they think it, or you know, trying to come up. It's almost like, so I heard a guy who I don't consider to be a very intelligent person, make an extremely intelligent comment the other day, and he said, you shouldn't be trying to critique somebody's position while trying to comprehend their position. And that was wisdom beyond his ability. And it's just it is very, very true, because oftentimes what I think we do is when people start to talk, we're already formulating answers, we're thinking about it in our head, we're running it through our heuristics machine, and we're spitting out, thoughts. Our inner monologue is spitting out thoughts, as opposed to just really sitting back, listening, and then asking more, and not leading questions, but charitable questions. What do you really mean when you say that? And just let them talk. And that's just called being a good listener, right? And just as you said, I think somebody being aware of their biases is a rare thing. I think the ability to just listen is an extremely rare quality.
It's because we live in an impulse control world.
I agree, and that's another reason why I don't like Granny Smith apples, really. But
the hell out of here with Granny Smith. All right, so let me wrap up this little middle section. And before I do, I want to point out that a week from tonight, at 8:00 on this channel, I'm going to be talking about music therapy with Nick and hopefully Vox. So tune in, be there or not.
What he means is be there.
He means be there. He means be there.
I was bad at sales.
And actually, that brings me to just the only other comment I want to make, which is, that's the other thing, which is we think that the human mind is designed for accuracy, and it's not. It's designed for efficiency. Those are two very different things. Accuracy is important, but it's only one half of the calculation.
Of course,
oh my God! Now,
what we mean by designed on this show is
through natural selection. So real quick, that reminds me of, in the same conversation I had with my buddy Keith, I was explaining, how like our mind quickly adapts to new realities, like instantly. I was telling him an example where I was wearing virtual reality goggles. I was not doing one. I was, where were we? Best Buy? Those Oculus?
Oculus, yes, the Oculus Quest.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Tried on the Oculus Quest on at a demo at Best Buy. Now, I'm deathly afraid of heights, but I did the rock climbing one because I thought they were going to start at the bottom. Nope. Nope. They put you right 4 miles above the earth on what looked like a spider web. And I started, my brain was just like, okay, cool. You're 4 miles above the earth and you're going to die. I started freaking out. The guy that was doing the demo looked back at me and he goes, I heard him say, you really are afraid of heights. Yeah. Because I was sweating. Yeah. I was freaking out.
Yeah.
Because you're not afraid of heights and you didn't choose the rock climbing one.
I was on a huge cliff in the middle of a moat.
You're not afraid of heights.
Fighting a dragon.
I'm going to pay her to record these things and send me him freaking out. I want to get.
It's the best.
Now the question here though, did you end up getting the Oculus Quest?
No, I was doing research because we were going to do a study. If we could find somebody to program a scene, we were going to do a study where we utilize them.
Oh well, you should get one.
I know. I'd love to. All right. So rabbit holes aside. All right. Take down.
You adapted. Or you were saying about the brain adapting, and then
yes.
You were giving
so that was it because
okay.
I was just riding on the coattails of what you were saying, right? Our brains quickly adapt to new environments, and it happens instantly to the point where, when I put on virtual reality goggles, it just decided in an instant that this new reality was actually reality. Now, you had said something that kind of was playing with that a moment ago that triggered it. What was being said?
That we're geared for efficiency is the
geared for. That's exactly right. Geared for. So our brain is geared for efficiency, not accuracy. It's not that I was on a cliff. It just was efficient. It was like, okay, it makes more sense for me to synthesize and bind this information as the new reality than to question it. Go efficient. Go. This is what's happening.
Yeah, well, I don't have time. I mean, it also just when you look at how we evolved, we didn't have time to always get the most accurate information. Accurate-ish was good enough.
All right, so take down AOC. Let's move on. So
all right,
the AOC example, and I was going to bring up Trump, but I think that we got what we needed out of that AOC tweet, and that's kind of an extreme example. But I kind of wanted to also bring it home to this idea that, you know, humans are Rorschachs. Smart people do stupid shit. Clever people do dumb shit. Wait, smart people do stupid shit. Stupid people do clever shit. That's what I meant to say. Like the example that you were just giving, Vox, right? Somebody that was somebody had an idea that was above their pay grade. Sometimes that happens. Right? Yeah. Sometimes that happens. And, you know, sometimes the same people who do shitty things are the same people who do wonderful things in other areas. So I say that because I'm also leaning towards the third part of tonight's show, which is the dangers of this analogy that I'm doing. But before we get into the dangers, let's play in the safety part. Your partner or your colleagues, you know, recognizing that humans are sloppy, messy Rorschachs can sometimes help with, like, when I'm in a shitty mood and one of my colleagues does something that chaps my ass, just being like, these are the same motherfuckers that bring in muffins on Friday. You know what I mean? Or, you know, cupcakes for no reason, or, you know, the same people that like volunteer to spend more hours at work because they see that I'm tired or whatever, you know what I mean? But it's just like, it's this mentality that facilitates, like, okay, even driving, right? Sometimes I get a little chapped at the way people drive, right? When everyone around me is driving like an asshole, it's not everyone around me. It's me. Right? So it's just like, it's these realizations. Or if the person in front of me like brakes too fast, and my mind immediately goes to them being stupid.
Because they are
stupid. Sometimes having this mentality helps me be like, okay, maybe they weren't paying attention. Maybe something, you know, good, you know, the universe forbid that it's something dire. All that happened was I was caught off guard. Right? So can you guys think of like more mundane examples where this could be applied in a healthy way, in a way that's productive?
Where what can be applied?
Just the idea that humans are Rorschachs, right?
Oh,
that somebody that like the easiest thing to do is, the easiest way to approach it is take somebody that you like and think of something that they do that you don't particularly like, and then the hard part is take somebody that you don't like and imagine them potentially, you know, being good at something. You know, give them the benefit of the doubt. Give somebody that you don't like the benefit of the doubt that you don't want to, but they might deserve.
Well, I think one of the problems is losses loom larger. And so I think what happens is when we apply the maximal charity in a situation, and the benefit is we make a new friend, because it's somebody that either we had heard bad things about previously, or not looking at anyone in particular, or
this is as veiled as the naked statue,
or you know, we learn something new by being open to new ideas. That's all well and good. But when we apply that charity and get taken advantage of, that's what you remember. And that's what, you know, 2 years later, you sit there and say, you see, that's why I don't apply charity. Forget the 1,000 times that it was a benefit and made my life better. I remember the one time it fucked everything up. And I think that's another bias. I think that's another. It's a part of the phrase "losses loom larger." When we've lost, we're more. We want to avoid losses more than we're conscious of acquiring gains. And if
we're loss averse,
we're loss averse. Thank you. So if something has been very, very productive 9 times out of 10. and the balance on the scales is 9 times more productive than the loss. But we've had that loss. That loss just weighs a lot more, and I think that's sort of what creates cynicism. I think that's what creates and not to mention the fact that it also takes energy. I mean, again, we're geared for efficiency, so it takes energy. Yes. So you've got to be conscious and present, and it's always an exercise to try to do these things. And so I think that's what makes it valuable. The only things that really have value are the ones that are difficult. So I think it's worth it, but I understand why it's so hard to do, and I find it difficult. I mean, I think even people who understand the importance of it, it's a skill as much as anything, and you just have to actively hone it and keep trying, and you have to do it so that it's one of those things. The harder it gets, the more you have to try. Instead of the harder it gets, just give up. You know what I mean? It's like, no. So, and you'll get it wrong. But I think this gets back to my sort of also how do you deal with the infinite regress of dealing with biases? And the answer is, I think, mostly experience. You just sort of realize there's a law of declining returns when you're just trying to investigate deep down into that rabbit hole, and you just sort of learn with experience when you kind of stop, but you have an open mind to, hey, maybe you have to start again. And you accept the fact that you're going to make mistakes and you're going to get it wrong. And the question is this a worthwhile thing to engage in and to realize that you are projecting?
But I also think that there needs to be room, based on what you're saying, there also needs to be room in you for the other person to make mistakes.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Because that is something that you would want for yourself. You would want that in the other person as well.
I think that's
Mr. Porpoise is asking who I am. It's me. It's Mouty.
Who is the person? That's Mr. Muddy. We've had him on a couple of times.
Probably because because my title is all wacky.
Well, your title's wacky, and you without the beard, you look like you may have been born this century all of a sudden. But of course, I'm one to talk because I'm just all.
Well, hold on. So the topic that you just brought up, the whole getting burned, right? Once bitten, twice shy kind of mentality. What is he doing?
He farted
on you while he's sitting on your lap.
Yes.
That's the first time I've ever heard of the cat farting. Does it stink?
Yeah, just like you.
It does not smell.
Tell her she needs to forgive the cat,
and
she needs to recognize.
She says, "I don't listen to Nick."
I noticed.
So there's that.
Yeah. Well, so we'll keep in mind there are people who deliberately ignore this principle of charity thing, and we're not going to mention any names.
So what was I saying? All right, so that actually segues nicely into what you were just talking about, where there are some times where you're charitable, principle of charitability, and you get burned, and that's the kind of thing that remembers, so you don't extend that charitability in future conversations. And knowing that humans are Rorschachs, it could shape your perceptions. Right now, there are some relationships that you should be setting very clear boundaries in. So here's the beginning of the dangers of viewing humans as Rorschachs, where if somebody is genuinely a bad person who can do nice things, you're fooled into them being a good person who's just doing a few bad things. That is where this Rorschach, thinking humans are like, oh yeah, he's bad, but he's so good to me. Like, oh yeah, I'm still black and blue, but he's so good to the kids. Like, or whatever congruent, incongruent gender relationship vibe you can talk about. It could very much be a setup for an abusive relationship, right?
Yep.
So I think that there is absolutely a danger in the psychology of like seeing humans as Rorschachs. What I don't want is to whitewash genuinely shitty behavior that should be a red flag.
Yep.
Right. And the reason why this whole topic came up is because I think that Trump, I said I wasn't going to bring him up, but because I'm bringing this point up, it reminds me of why we even talked about doing this topic.
Yep.
It's because we both see Trump as a Rorschach, right? 70 million people voted for him.
Yeah.
I mean, people see in him things that I just couldn't possibly. And you know what's going to drive me nuts? The same things that I think are deplorable about him might be the same exact things that other people dig about him. So, you know, as the guy that didn't want to see him die of COVID, because I want him to live long enough to suffer the consequences of his actions, I try to be as charitable to him as I can be. But even so, I think he's a rotten, rotten human being.
Well, I always said this about Bush. I remember when Bush Jr. was in office,
W?
and yeah.
Okay.
I remember my wife would sort of give the worst interpretation of any events that he did. Well, a lot of people did. And they're like, "Oh, he did this, he did this." I said, "That's not really what he did, and that's not what he meant." Like, why are you being nice to him? Why are you giving? And I was sitting there going, "Listen, he is such an asshole, and he fucks up so much shit, just genuinely in reality. You don't. I can apply maximum charity and still find loads of shit to dislike about the guy. So if he's really a bad person, apply as much charity as you can, and you'll still get. So I can sit there and say, listen, no, he got this one right, or it doesn't change anybody's perspective on him. With Trump, I think it's interesting. So, for example, like his Trump University was in my view irrefutably a fraud. You look into how.
And
it was
yes,
run.
I want to double down on Trump being president as an abusive relationship. Doubling down on it.
Yeah. Okay, you're gonna have to explain that before I finish my explain that one.
Oh, explain it. I mean, how could it be anything but? It is somebody who perpetually lies, tells you how much they're doing for you, and at the same time is depriving you of the very things, the very securities that you would need to survive. Like this, how is that not abusive? It's psychological abuse, it's verbal abuse, it's emotional abuse.
Yeah,
it's making promises you don't keep, while at the same time like keeping you under the water with one hand while like offering the other to help you out. It's just the weirdest. Oh, he's fucking crazy, man. God.
Well, and gaslighting. I mean, he's just like, well, we're doing this, and this. It's just not the reality. Some of it's lying, and some of it is just. I mean, some of it's, in my view, to the point of gaslighting. But if you take, okay, so I think there are I think there are people for whom I think more people are aware that he's lying than are willing to admit it. I think a lot of conservatives are aware that he's lying, but they just don't see any harm in it. And again, in some cases, they sit there and say, "Well, no, it's a positive thing because, he is." It shows that, he's gonna control the perception. He's gonna dominate, and he's gonna make sure that, and that's what you want in a statesman. You want somebody who's gonna direct people. As I agree. I just don't think lying is the way to do it. But I think some of his biggest faults, a few people do see those as pluses. The fact that he got away with almost essentially murder in business, I think is. I don't think that's a plus. And I feel other people are sitting there going, "Hey, if he could get away with it, well then, kudos for him. That's we need someone who can think outside the box and who can go and get things done."
The I'm gonna get mine society. Fuck that, man. That sounds like the Wild West. That sounds like anarchy. Might is right. I'm gonna get mine. Jesus.
Well, and everyone who thinks that is always the one who thinks that they're the alpha dog, which A, they rarely are, and B, the one thing I've noticed about being the alpha in any situation is it doesn't last for very long. In reality, there aren't very many situations where you are the best at anything for any. The heavyweight boxer of the world is that for a short period of time, and someday someone stronger comes along, and there's always somebody stronger, smarter. There's always. Yeah, and there are ways to thrive without having to put yourself in the crosshairs of absolutely all living things. I'm not sure it's necessarily a plus to go ahead and do so. But
so
yeah.
I also have I'd like to start kind of wrapping it up.
Yeah, that's good.
But also, if we take it out of the political realm, right, and we apply it to like the intertubes, right, obviously there's petty drama bullshit online. Applying this idea of humans being a Rorschach to these public figures online, same rules apply. There are some that you should set clear boundaries with and avoid at all costs. Others, there might be some that you genuinely dislike, that applying this filter may or may not change your perception of. I'm not trying to encourage anything other than, all right, here's where I'm going to get my soapbox. If there was ever a time to come together online, regardless of our differences, let's transcend tribes. Who's good, who's bad, who's a piece of shit, who's a manipulative puppet master. It's just, now is the time to come together, to get along, to grow together based on the things we have in common, not be pulled apart by the things that make us different. Because we are both of those things. We are a Rorschach. We are Nick Soutter's in time Rorschach. Thank you.
Oh, if I had known that was kind of had the exit queued up and would have bailed right on that one.
Well, I didn't even know I was going to do that. So
that was good.
I don't know how I could have warned you about it.
It probably would have sounded, it would have been a little more compelling if it wasn't literally from inside an echo chamber, but nonetheless, I really did. That was good. That was good.
Too much. Speaking of which, we need to do a hang sometime about that idea my buddy Keith came up with. We have to stop using the phrase online.
Yes.
As if it is somewhere different than everywhere else. Like the boundary between what was online behavior and what is in real life behavior is so blurry now. The term's rendered useless. That's no, is it though? I mean, that's a thing. It's a fun thing to talk about.
Yeah, I think in some context it's important, but no, we got to do it. We'll do it. I think that's a great power. We'll do it on your channel. We'll figure it out. We'll get together and we'll get that done. I think that's a good idea. So I want to meet Keith. I got a lot of questions.
Made of questions, Keith.
All right. Well, yeah, let's wrap this up. So was there anything else that you wanted to I think this was I really appreciate you coming by. I think this was a great topic.
It was a very hacky ending. I meant the sentiment, but I obviously was exaggerating for comedic effect. But I do think that applying this idea that humans are Rorschachs, that if you see somebody engaging in shitty behavior, like who wants to be brushed by their shittiest behavior online? I guess even though I just talked about not using that phrase ever again, I'm doing it. Or just in general.
Well, because I think I do. Online is now part of all life, but not all life is always online. And I've noticed that you're going to be shittier online when there's anonymity. That's just what people do. So I do think that there's a time to distinguish when someone said something online and they didn't necessarily suffer the consequences. Titan also came up with a good idea, which was ending tribalism, which I don't even know if that's possible, but that's certainly worthwhile discussion. Well, that was just as a show discussion. Like what would that look like? Or at least
falls onto itself. That falls onto itself, like the looking at your being biased and looking at your biased falls onto itself, right? If you're against tribes, then you are now in the tribe against tribes. So and then it just goes against that. And if
thank you. Now I'm going to be up all night trying to figure that one out. I don't have enough.
Don't bother.
Don't bother. You'll give me the answer.
Don't bother. And don't forget, everyone, next Monday at 8:00, we're going to be talking music therapy. I did go to graduate school for music therapy, so that's a fun little discussion. I'll talk a little bit about the history, and then we'll just I'll have my bass and I'll be playing, and I'll just give some examples about how it could be used. It's fun. Music therapy is a fun topic, and I'm sure everybody will. Everybody uses music therapeutically, so it's a very human interest kind of fun hang.
That's a good point. Is that everybody does music? Yeah, I hadn't even thought of it that way. I'm looking forward to it. Vox says hello. I've got Vox on the Discord. I had some technical issues, so we lost her, but she will be, technical issues notwithstanding. Expect to see her. Then let's see. We've got Discord. I'm actually not going to be able to be in the Discord later tonight. I'm going to have to get going, but Vox may be there if you guys want to catch up with Vox. I don't know if Marty will be able to join, but I'm there basically every day. Not tonight. All right. So, but if you want to join us on the Discord, that's great. If you've gotten to the end of the show, that means hopefully you liked it. If you did, please like and subscribe. It helps us out a lot. And we've got a really good Discord and a thriving community there. So please join us. I'll probably be on later tonight, certainly, and all, but I'm going to go spend a little time with the family. So to the Reverend Dr. Christopher Mowdy, educational masters in wow, I don't even know how to read that one. Thank you. Thank you for joining, dear Lord. And to everyone else, thank you for watching. My name is Nick Soutter. Good night.
You're welcome, guys.